So, hello everybody, thank you so much for tuning into my channel. Today I have a special friend with me here today, and she's here to answer all the questions that you might have. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. Question number one. So, what is your name?
Hello, my name is Janeé, and I'm glad to be here.
Yay, thank you. So the next question is, where are you from?
I am from the United States of America. Specifically, I am from Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, what do they have in Nashville, Tennessee?
Hot chicken and whiskey.
And good music, isn't it? Like
Music City.
Yeah.
City. Yeah, we got some good rock music, country music, blues. It's all there.
So if you're interested, Nashville, for all those reasons. Okay. So do you have a background in teaching?
Technically, no. I graduated with a psychology degree with a minor in dance and neuropsychology. During my neuropsychology degree studies, I did teach a few wellness classes, and that's the extent of it. I taught wellness classes, and then before university, I was on a few dance teams, and I got to teach dancing. So I know how to teach when it comes to like body movement. That was my background. However, just before moving to Korea, I became a substitute teacher for 4 months, and
okay.
that was the
extent of your teaching.
Yeah, that's the extent of my teaching, and that was the crash course.
Okay, thank you. So what brought you here to South Korea?
Trauma. No, some really terrible things happened in my life, and the things that happened forced me to take on more of a YOLO kind of lifestyle. Like, if I died tomorrow, what would I do? What would I want to do? And what are my hopes and dreams? And while teaching in Korea was not like a dream of mine or anything, it was something that was in the back of my mind. So I decided, like, why not try it now?
Okay. And how long have you been in Korea, and why do you think you've stayed for so long?
I've lived in Korea for almost 7 years. I have stayed so long due to circumstance. The original plan was to stay here for 2 years, but my first city was a countryside city, so I knew that my experiences were a bit limited, and I was in love with Busan, so I stayed another year so that I could teach in Busan, and there I taught at an academy. And then Busan was great, but my teaching experience did not end well there, so I decided to just give it one more try, and that's how I ended up in my current city. And my current city came with extra benefits. Like, as an American, healthcare is so important to me, and it's not something that I'm used to, but Korea has that. It's affordable healthcare. It's amazing. So that was a big thing for me. People don't carry guns. That was a big thing for me. And then, like, for this last city that I was in, I was going to stay here for a year and just leave. But I had a bigger apartment. I had perfect co-teachers at my main school. I had a great landlord. So, and then the pay was great. So that's what kept me here.
Okay, so for those of you that are wondering, the city that we are in, I don't think that I've mentioned it, is Gwangyang. It is in the province Jeollanam-do, so it's like very south of Korea,
Southwest,
Korea.
Yeah.
So, in case you were wondering,
awesome.
It is, it really is. So you said that you've worked both in the Hagwon and you had some experiences with EPIK as well. So which do you prefer?
Public school. There are definitely pros and cons that come with each experience, but by working at a Hagwon, I learned that vacation time is very precious to me, and I need it to be sane. I need it to be a good teacher, and that's the main part that has Hagwon's beat for me. When I worked at a Hagwon, I loved the curriculum. It was amazing. Yeah. I had smaller class sizes. I was able to actually get to know my students. I knew their names. But with public school, you have so many students. It's almost impossible to get to know them unless you work at very small schools. And we get 20 plus vacation days, 26 vacation days. If you renew some, depending on your province, you get bonus an extra 5 days. You are the only foreigner in the school. You're the only foreign native teacher in the school, but I will sacrifice with that. I can deal with the isolation if it comes with great vacation time and more pay.
So just to put things in perspective, like a bigger class entails like anywhere between, for me, I teach at a high school, so my classes have at most 23 students. Like, the average is 20 students, but at most 23 students. How many students do you have in your school, at your schools?
The smallest classes are 26 students, and the biggest classes are 30 students. So
and you
that's
teach
nice.
at a middle school, right?
Yeah, I teach at a middle school. I teach at middle schools.
Middle schools.
23. That sounds so nice. I didn't know
And like we usually have like 3 football players that come. They sometimes don't come. So then it's like 17, 15, and I'm just breezing
that's
through.
so nice.
Those 50 minutes go by so quickly.
Even when I worked at an elementary school, it was like 30 students was the norm. So that's nice. 27 was like great at my elementary school, but you're living the dream.
Yeah, maybe it's because I'm also at an all girls high school, and you have like co-ed, like both.
My main school's all girls.
Oh yes.
And it's the same. They all come to class. No.
Okay, the next question is, okay, since you've been here for 7 years, how much Korean can you actually speak?
Okay. I know that this is a controversial topic, and people think you live in a country, you got to learn the language, you should be fluent by year 1. That's not realistic it's not realistic, at least with the teachers. If you want to speak Korean fluently, you've really got to put in a lot of time. And with us having full-time jobs that require us not to speak any Korean at all, you're a special kind of person. I can speak survival Korean. It is uncommon for me to have any troubles because I've learned how to speak Korean when it comes to grocery store circumstances, taxis, the doctor. I don't usually have any issues, but I'm not fluent by any means. I'm not even half fluent. If you do want to learn Korean, you need to pay for a tutor. Don't get a free person. Don't do language exchange. Get a real tutor with teaching experience, and that's how you'll learn. I found that if you're a student in Korea, you are more likely to speak Korean and be fluent because you have to. Your professors often will not speak to you in English, even if their class says that they speak to you in English. Apparently, that's not true. But I teach English all day long. I am required to speak English in the classroom. Every now and then I'll speak a little Korean, and it's my school is cool with that, but a lot of places aren't. So if I want to learn Korean and I want to be fluent, I'd have to take time after work, after 8 hours of work, to dedicate time to that. And I have other hobbies. I don't do that. But I will assure you, wherever I go, I usually have some kind of Korean handy, and I don't have many issues.
Okay, so your method was just learning as you go along.
Yes.
It wasn't textbook, okay, let me read.
I tried the textbook. I tried the textbooks.
Yeah.
Actually, my first city that I lived in was really small. So there was no choice. Nobody speaks English in that city, in that town.
Yeah.
So I had to just learn on the go, and that has been the best way for me, at least for when it comes to remembering. And then at other times, if I know I have to speak Korean, then sometimes I'll write something down ahead of time or ask my coworkers. But for the most part, I'm fine learning hello, thank you, I want to buy this, do you have this, I feel blah blah blah, have a nice day, have a good night, stuff like that. It'll get you far. I do think that if you move to Korea, you should at least learn the alphabet. That will make things so much easier for you if you learn how to read the alphabet.
Okay, thank you. That's some good advice. So the next question is, have you ever experienced discrimination or racism since living here? I think this is a question that a lot of people ask, and a lot of people are curious. I know since I've moved here, my people back at home, I've had this question quite a few times, and I think that might be because South Africa, racism is so prevalent, so they might be wondering, have you dealt with it? How do you?
Yeah. Oh, I understand. Yes, of course. I experience most of the time though. It's like xenophobia. It's because I'm not Korean, more so than it being because I'm a Black person. And somehow that makes me feel comfortable. I feel better when I learn oh, they hate all foreigners instead of they hate Black people. But also I'm from the U.S. Similar to how you said with South Africa. Racism is prevalent. The main difference here is that it's not deadly, and I'll take non-deadly racism and discrimination over what I have to deal with back in my home country any day. I don't worry, if a police officer profiles me and asks for my ID here, I know they're not going to beat my brains in or shoot me. When a club owner or a cafe owner or a restaurant owner says no foreigners, that'll be the end of it. And then I'm okay, you don't get my money, and I move on. Perhaps I become desensitized to it, but just overall, I will take racism or discrimination with a side of affordable health care and mainly the affordable health care and not being killed by police. I'd take that any day. It's just not, it's weighing our options is not so bad.
Yeah, and it isn't that that bad because I've been here for 5-6 months, and I can't say that I've experienced any racism or I haven't even been discriminated against.
That's you're doing.
But I feel like I'm still in the honeymoon phase of Korea. I'm still like, oh, okay, everything is all.
I will say with the pandemic, it's like you probably won't be going out as much, but also because of the pandemic, there has been like an uptick in like the xenophobia and people saying like, oh, we don't want foreigners here because they have corona and stuff like that. But
I've read about that a lot.
It's great that you have not experienced that. I've experienced it a lot, but it doesn't bother me as much. When it first happened to me, I'd seen other YouTubers talk about it, so I was kind of mentally prepared for it, but it's still like a little jarring for me. And just like, I think when it comes to racism, it's just been different when I'm around other foreigners who are white. That's when I like notice the difference in how I'm being treated versus how they're being treated. But for the most part, like I said, I'll take it with the side of affordable health care. It's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but it's not the worst. I've dealt with worse back at home. Yeah,
for sure. So what are some things that you've experienced at your school that you didn't expect?
The isolation is a big thing. When you are teaching in a public school, they usually just have one native English teacher and everyone else is Korean. And depending on your school, they're going to welcome you with open arms and try to make you feel welcome, or they're not. And I've been at like my school that I'm at now, my main school, they've done such a great job with making me feel included. But then like my second school, they're more on par with a lot of schools and they don't care. I used to tell my parents, like, if I died in my classroom at that school, nobody would notice. Maybe a student, the teachers wouldn't notice. Like, it's really isolating. You have to have a strong mind to deal with it, or like an outlet of some sort. So I'd say that, the isolation is a big thing. And then the Korean surprise, where things just happen last minute and nobody tells you until like a second before something has to happen, because it has to go through so many other people before it comes down to the very bottom to where you are. So the isolation and the Korean surprises were what I did not completely expect, or at least I thought I expected it, but I did not.
All right. And then have you enjoyed working with your coworkers? How did you navigate a relationship, or even forming a relationship with them and the students? How did you build rapport with your students?
I have a very silly personality, so building rapport with the students has never been too much of an issue for me. But coworkers, it's been hit or miss. The first school that I worked at, my main co-teacher was very stoic and very guarded. I remember asking her like, oh, what's your favorite Korean food? And she told me, and I was like, well, what's your least favorite Korean food? And she said, I don't have a least favorite Korean food. All of our food is delicious. And I just felt weird, like, ma'am, like no one's going to take your Korean like citizenship away if you say you don't like something. So that's what kind of relationship we had. She was a good teacher, a good co-teacher, but getting close to her was so hard. But I accepted it eventually. And then at my two current schools, I work at two public schools, and at my main school, my main co-teacher happened to be my age. And that is the best, because the Korean hierarchy when it comes to age, it's important. It's a lot. So we're like around the same age. She's actually a little younger, but like we're around the same age, so it was perfect. She wasn't acting weird with me. We've had like some deep conversations, some inappropriate conversations, and it's been like an open communication thing. So she's been great, and she actually started a conversational English program that had me, her, and the other two English teachers meet for coffee every week until the pandemic. But we'd meet for coffee every week during school hours, so that was great. We'd get to leave early to meet for coffee and have conversational English. And we had books. We never used the books. We just talked about whatever. But like because of that kind of situation, I was very close to my coworkers at that school, like my English teachers. And then also I participated in volleyball. So I got close to the other teachers as well. I don't even like playing volleyball, but very early on I noticed that it was a great tool for building like a relationship with the teachers who aren't used to me, because a lot of them are terrified of me. So with volleyball, I was able to just kind of like let the wall go down a little bit, tear the wall down. And I have a great relationship with my coworkers at my main school. They don't speak English. My Korean is very subpar, but like we all get along. We look out for each other. We bring snacks for each other. Like it's all good. And then at my travel school, that travel school is just very strange. I thought that it was weird in that I couldn't build a good relationship with my coworkers. No matter how much I tried, I put in a lot of effort and it just wasn't working. And it finally took a new teacher from last semester. And she ended up only staying one semester and she left. And I talked to her, well, she talked to me about something. She was like, the teachers at this school are weird. Like she said that the school culture, the school culture was different from anything she'd ever been around before. And she said that people aren't really nice. They don't look out for each other. And basically talking to her validated my feelings. I learned like, I'm not crazy. This school is weird. I'm trying my best to be a team player and nobody cares about the team. So that school, my relationship, the best relationship I have is like not making anyone angry and then also being able to have a little freedom in the classroom. And that's the best I can do there. But my main school, chef's kiss.
Which is kind of my school also, chef's kiss. Because all of my with the exception of one, I think I have one coworker I have 4 coworkers in total, but the one coworker that's like kind of young-ish, she's the one that I would say we don't talk at all. Unless it's about school, we don't have a conversation. My other coworkers who are all older than me, and one male co-teacher, they're so accommodating and nice and that's just so like, good. We here for you, girl, we got you. So it was
so there's 3?
4 in
There's
total.
4?
Yeah, 3 of
3
them
out
are
of
older.
4 is not bad.
But even the 4th one, she's very professional and she'll help me when it comes to like anything schoolwork related. So all of them, like I feel like she knows her role and she acts accordingly. Yeah. And it works.
Hey, that is still a great situation. That's wonderful. A bad co-teacher or someone who does not want to work with you can make or break you. Yeah. They can make or break your experience in Korea. So like you starting out with good people, that's perfect. That's great. You're lucky. So lucky.
And then, okay, my next question is, how do you handle discipline in your classes? Is that something that you do or your co-teacher? And how is it different from like a hagwon? Who's in charge of the disciplling?
I don't really discipline. The worst that I can do is give them the black mama look. Like
we know it. The death state. Like, what are you doing?
And they'll usually stop. That's the extent of my discipline. At my main school, it's an all-girls school, and I usually don't have to discipline. They're pretty good at checking each other.
That's exactly right.
At my co-ed school, though, that school's different. They're different over there. So the co-teacher handles the discipline. I remember I used to kind of get frustrated with the students sleeping in class because I know that they're in middle school. I know that they're at hagwons all day, but like at my main school, I get like two students sleeping in class, and that's not too terrible, 2 to 3. At my main school, there were times where there were like 8 students sleeping in my class. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. This is too much. And I'd look around wondering if my lesson was just bad. But no, everyone was excited. It's just those 8 students came to class expecting to sleep and they were going to try to get their sleep. And I remember I would go around and I would just poke them like, hey, wake up. And then my co-teacher at that school was like, don't touch the students. And I was like, okay. She's like, I'll handle them. So I was like, okay. So at my travel school, they handle the discipline. It's not much discipline at all. Sometimes depending on the teacher, sometimes they'll make them clean afterwards. And that's the extent of the discipline. But at my main school, the co-teachers, the Korean teachers handle the discipline because they don't want there to be any misunderstandings or trouble. And what was the second part of your question? How is it different from
the hagwon? Who was in charge of the discipline?
At the hagwon, it was similar. The Korean counterpart teachers were in charge of disciplining. I did have some discipline rules because the students had a point system, so I could take away their points, their market points, and sometimes I'd make them clean the classroom. But for the most part, the Korean teacher would take care of it because they had direct contact with the parents. So they would do it. If it was a really big issue, then the director was supposed to do it. But that didn't always play out the way it was supposed to.
So wait, in a hagwon, you also have a co-teacher or a Korean teacher?
We have not. It's not the same as with the public school. Your Korean co-teacher's in the classroom with you. At the hagwon, I don't teach. I taught alone, and the Korean teacher taught alone. But the classes were organized in parts. So first period with me, second period with the Korean teacher, and they were teaching the first half of the lesson. I was teaching the second half of the lesson, that kind of thing. And then they had their parents and their students that they're specifically assigned. So we shared students, but we did not share classrooms.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, our next question is advice for first-time teachers. Do you have any?
Be open, be adaptable. You've got to figure out the way that your school works before you make any changes. I am a rule breaker. I'm a rule breaker. I know this about myself. I love to figure out the rules and then figure out how to break them. So if you were, well, even if you're not like me, you got to figure out the way that things work first.
Yeah.
And because your co-teachers can make or break your experience as a teacher in the school with your other coworkers, don't fuck that up. If you have a terrible co-teacher, endure, figure out a way to coexist, because they can really mess things up for you. And just you've got to figure out the way things work before you start moving things around. Definitely.
Oh, that's very good advice. So what is the hardest part for you? What was the hardest part about teaching in Korea for you?
Working with my co-teachers, because you may have multiple co-teachers who want completely different things. At my first school, I had my first 2 years in Korea, I had 3 co-teachers at my main school, and I had homeroom teachers as my co-teachers at my second school, meaning that these homeroom teachers they weren't English teachers. They didn't study to be English teachers. So I had to figure out how to work with like over 12 teachers. And they all wanted different things from the lesson. Some of them wanted me to work on just listen and repeat stuff. Some of them wanted me to work outside of the book. So if you figure out what your co-teachers want, that will make things a lot easier for you. At my current schools, like my main school, my first grade middle school teacher, she wants me to work out of the book. Second grade middle school teacher, he wants me to work out of the book a little bit, but he is fine going anywhere else. If I add in any lesson that is compatible with the book and with the key expressions, he does not care. My third grade co-teacher, she doesn't care about the book at all. Like, I mean, we have to do the key expressions because they are in the book and they are on the exams. But like, if I came into class and said, oh, we're not using the book at all today, we're just gonna watch this YouTube video, she'd expect a worksheet or something, but like she'd be fine with it. So that's how it is at my main school. But at my second school, it's been different for each co-teacher. This last semester I worked with one co-teacher, and she didn't want me to work from the book at all. She just wanted me to use the key expressions and make any lesson or activity, and she wanted it to be fun every time. So working with co-teachers is the most difficult part, because you have to figure out what each co-teacher wants, and you could end up with several co-teachers that want completely different things.
That's so true. I can 100% agree with that.
How are your co-teachers?
Yes, mine, so the second graders, I didn't really get to teach second grade students this year, so I kind of followed my co-teacher's lead because I didn't do any of the teaching. So with the two, they are so different in the way they teach or what they expect. So it was just like, okay, let me figure out this person.
Absolutely.
And their teaching style. You kind of just like observe them and like, okay, I know how what this person expects, and then the one is more rigid and the other one is like more free. So it's just like, okay, I just need to be more structured and ask questions and make sure that I understand correctly, because this person is like more rigid.
Absolutely.
This person is like, okay, we can like figure it out like the day before or something like that. And then I
can't stand those teachers. I don't like them.
That's so confusing.
Yeah.
But my first year co-teachers, they are just like, okay, we don't really use the textbook that much. Like, it's up to you to decide. So I think an important question when you do get here is ask what the previous teacher before you did, because then if you don't really know what footsteps to follow, and you're like, I don't really know, because having someone tell you like, just do whatever.
I hate that.
That
what is whatever? Where is the box?
I need to know. I'm like, okay, that doesn't work for me. So what did the previous teacher do? And then you kind of like, you do that for first few weeks, and then you'll find your style and like how things work. But yeah, you have to have co-teachers that are also on board, and you have to do follow up. Like, even if you ask them last week, hey, this is what we're doing, like the day before your lesson, just make sure, like, are we doing this? This is what I'm doing. Here's my lesson. I know you don't have time to go over it. Send it to the other teacher also. So, so you, for your own sanity, do that. Follow up a lot.
And this is a perfect example of an adaptable teacher for your first year. If you're new here, please learn how to be adaptable. You got to figure out what they want.
Yeah. Okay.